Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is 6 p.m. You know what time it is? It's time for Me Powered with Rhonda. And tonight we have a very exciting show because, well, you'll see in a second why we came up with the name that we came up with. It's going to be a good one. I tell you, if you've ever had something fall apart at the last second, this is the show to watch, listen to, and re-listen to. Before we get started, though, I want to make sure that everybody knows exactly how to tune in. And by the way, this show has been uploaded to all the major podcasting platforms. I did a post today. It's on Spotify, it's on Spreaker, it's on Deezer, it's on Podcast Addict, it's coming to iHeart soon. So make sure you listen to us on all of those. But Lady J, tell them how they can listen to us right now.
All right, if this is your first time tuning in to Me Powered with Rhonda or JQLM Radio, and you would like to share with your family, friends, and followers on all the different ways that they can tune in, be sure to tell them to download the JQLM Radio app on their Apple or Android devices. You can also listen live via Amazon Alexa, TuneIn app, and Stream a Simple Radio app, and a host of other platforms, of which you can find located on our website, where you can also listen live at egoentertainmentnet.com. Also, don't forget to follow, like, and share us on social media. You can connect with JQLM Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JQLM Radio. You can connect with Ego Entertainment Network at EgoEntNet. That's EgoEntNet. Also, you can connect with us on LinkedIn at Ego Entertainment Network as well.
And to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook at Me Powered. Also, on my personal page, but Me Powered is a brand new Facebook page for this show. We're also on Instagram at me.powered, and we have a website coming that's in the works right now, mepowered.co. Make sure you listen to that, and we're working on the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you follow me and don't miss a single show that we got coming. So today, let's just say this. All right. So, okay, we'll start it this way. What had happened was initially, now, those of you that follow me, I've been doing lives. I've been telling you all about the kids, the winners of the Black History Bowl. They were going to be on tonight. Well, turns out that didn't happen for a couple of different reasons, and that's okay. You know, with live radio or live TV or live podcast, you always got to be ready for the unexpected. So I had to real quick switch guests, and thankfully I've got a waiting list to be on this show. So I called another person, and unfortunately they're supposed to be here right now, and I don't know where he is right now. So like they say, the show must go on, especially when you are broadcasting live. You can't wait for stuff. So you just got to be ready to roll with it. So we came up with the title, What to Do When Everything Falls Apart. And being that I am a counselor, coach, speaker, therapist, motivational speaker as well, I was like, well, this would be the perfect opportunity to talk about anxiety and worry and what to do when your plans fall apart or what you were hoping for just seems to hit the fan, if you know what I'm saying. And so I'll be having a conversation with Lady J during this, and we're going to talk about the various ways that we've handled and we've learned to handle how to navigate. I guess that's the best way you could say it, when everything does fall apart, because your plans, fall apart. And I've got personal experience with this on so many levels. Even just recently, just going to be a little transparent here. Recently, my job, I had my primary job that I was there 15 years. And one day came in, and in October, they said, hey, guess what? Your department is now gone. No warning, no nothing. And that was a shock. And I did not realize how deeply that would affect me at the time. I thankfully I got another job right away, but I had a real hard time waking up and being on time for the new job. And I didn't understand what was going on with me. And it took me about 3 weeks to get in the habit of it. And then I realized that I kind of fell into a depression. Because sometimes when you get hit with unexpected events and life changes happen, they can affect you in different ways. And of course, I had anxiety, right off the bat, I panicked because I'm 55 years old and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I didn't have savings and I didn't have certain things. So my initial thought was fear. And all kinds of insecurity started running in and racing in. And then the fear brought up anxiety. And then that led to depression. Well, I thankfully was able to work myself out of it, and it wasn't that long. But I really want to talk about, what happens when things fall apart. Because, like, even tonight with the show, we had a couple of changes last second, and I got nervous again. I got anxious again. And I was thinking to myself, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to just, roll with it. And I was like, all right, perfect time, the topic, that I can talk about anything. And several of my classes and my clients, I talk to them, and one of the consistent things that always comes up is, hey, Rhonda, I'm dealing with anxiety, or I'm dealing with fear, or I'm dealing with depression, and I don't know what to do, or I have worry, I have racing thoughts, I have intrusive dreams, and I can't seem to get it to stop. How do I get control of my life again when everything fell apart? So thought about it, and I was like, that would be a perfect topic tonight. What do you do when everything falls apart? So that's what we're going to discuss today. So, Lady J, I know you've had some things that have fallen apart in your life. And, when we find those things that have fallen apart, we discover that we're resilient, don't we?
Oh yeah. My life.
Resilient is the word of the day.
Uh, Dr. Leslie Hodge wrote a cover story about me for the magazine, and she
Mhm.
entitled it "Resilience on Repeat."
Oh, nice.
And let me tell you, that is my life story.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Nothing goes as planned.
Right.
Things,
Or how we say that part. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, things falling apart definitely. Also, sometimes will have you falling apart.
Absolutely.
So, I definitely know what that's like. And you were talking about being depressed because
Mhm.
it was unexpected and things of that sort. I spent the last 6 months of my life here recently being extremely depressed. I was a little depressed anyway after the aneurysm, but
Right.
extremely depressed because my life literally started to fall apart. Nothing went as planned. But for me, even though, being a psychology major, even though
Mhm.
I mentor and counsel other people and things
Mhm.
of that sort, um, for me, it's not, I can't come from just a psychological or clinical or practical standpoint. I also have to look at it from a spiritual standpoint.
Right.
And sometimes we have to come to the realization that our plan is usually not the best plan.
Yeah.
So to us, and let me just, this is a testament to me, it was like everything was falling apart, but in
Right.
actuality, everything was falling into
Falling into
place.
place. It was falling into place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because we both have our psychology backgrounds, we both counsel, we both, lead tons of people, and tons of people come to us. But here's the thing, a lot of times people don't think that we could be susceptible to anxiety, depression, grief, anything ourselves. And the reality is, we're human and we deal with things just like everybody else. Now, it's a little bit harder to talk to people because you have to be selective with the people that you speak to, that can bring you up and fill you up as well. But it's important to debrief and have somebody on your level that you can speak to and that you can release to, that is not going to judge you, not going to change their mind about you, and not going to think, well, now you're not qualified, and see you as a real person. Because self-care is the most important part of being a helper. When you're in the helping profession to help other people, we take on everybody's burdens, and we're great at helping everybody else. And then we have to use the very same skills and the very same tools ourselves. And that's how I pulled myself out of the depression with my job. I realized it in 3 weeks. I was like, okay, Rhonda, wait a minute. What would you do? What would you tell a client right now? And I had to analyze myself. I had to evaluate myself. I'm like, you are slipping into a depression
Mhm.
and you have to pull yourself out of it. And so I was able to recognize it and use the tools that I have with all of my clients, and I was able to pull it out. So, and you realize that you're a lot more resilient once you come through something. But yeah, my heart pounds. I get anxiety just like everybody else. My mind starts to race just like
Mhm.
everybody else. What did you find that worked the best for you when everything was falling apart for you? How did you ground yourself, Lady J?
I'm gonna tell you the same way I've grounded myself throughout all these years. And people,
Hmm.
I know people think it's cliche, but I'm telling you 100%, it's just God.
Yeah.
I literally have to, for most people, they need somebody to talk to or vent to. I
Hmm.
don't do that. I have to go into seclusion, and then I
Okay.
go into a mode of fasting and praying. The closer I can get to God, um,
Hmm.
the more I can hear Him and like um kind of cancel out all the extra noise.
Right.
But at the same time, what's frustrating when I'm in that state, because that's the only way I can literally stay sane. If
Hmm.
I am listening to other people's opinions, I even stop talking to my therapist
Yeah.
because um it's always, well, what if this? You need to
Yeah.
plan if this happens. I cannot be in a headspace
Right.
of what if. I have
Yeah.
to know, for me, my faith has to coincide, or my faith has to carry me through the uncertainties. And I know
Okay.
that the only person that knows the provisions for those uncertainties is God.
Okay.
So the thing that sets me apart from most other mentors or counselors is I have a life experience and
Mhm.
a extra factor of my method that a lot of counselors, therapists, and what I'm saying, mentors and stuff don't have. There are things that you can offer to your clients when you know where they are, when you've gone through
Mhm.
it yourself,
Yeah.
and they get to see sometimes they get to see bits and pieces of you going
Right.
through that process yourself, you being
Mhm.
in action. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, like you said, when we are the ones going through stuff, people always think, well, dang, how she qualified to help somebody?
Mhm.
She depressed herself. No, no, no. I'm
No.
human just like everybody else.
Yep.
So watch me go
Yes.
through this so you can pay attention on
Yep.
how to do it and how to get through
Yep.
it. That's what you need
Yeah,
to
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna set the pathway and just come behind me and see where the steps are. Yeah, but we have to utilize the exact same tools. You're exactly right with that. And a lot of times, I tell clients as well. Those things that you go through when you're in the midst of it. Yeah, it feels horrible, and you never think you're gonna get out of it. But I tell you what, everything you go through is once you get to the other side, you're meant to go through that so that you have now the blueprint for other people, because your pain is your platform for ministry. Your pain is your platform for breakthrough. Your pain is your platform to your purpose. And once you get in on the other side, and it's really good when people can see you, and trust me, they watch. Oh, they are watching
Oh
you,
yeah.
especially us. They're watching us to see, well, how do we handle it? Because at the end of the day, they look to you and they hold you in a high regard. And they're like, well, you know what? If Rhonda did it, or if Lady J did it, well, let me see, how did she do it? I can do it too. And that gives them the courage, because now we are the trailblazers, and we may not know. We may be, walking like we're in the dark with our hands up and hitting the walls and bumping into stuff. But I tell you what, we're going to forge our pathway. We're going to find a way through. It may not be straight. It may not be the expected pathway. It may not be the planned pathway, but doggone it, we're going to make a pathway. We're going to find our way to the other side. And then when you are blessed to come through on the other side, and you get through and you get your breakthrough, and you begin to heal from your pain,
Mhm.
then you can go back and you can help somebody else. Because you know what, Lady J, as hard as it is for us when we go through, other people don't have the strength, and they need your strength. Sometimes we have to resuscitate. We have to do like continual CPR, mouth to mouth, with the people when they're going through, because they don't have the means, or they may not be as strong enough. Because what we deal with other people, it could take them out. So they
Right.
need to see
Right.
the example of resilience in us, the
Mhm.
reboundedness in us, or like you say, your bounce back ability, you
Right.
know, in us, to get the courage to at least try and
Yeah.
at least see a possibility of, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. You
Yeah.
know, I can get to the other side.
And there's another part to that too. When you are a person that has been called to provide those tools, those resources, those steps to help somebody else, oftentimes we find ourselves doing that from a place of pain.
Yeah.
We don't get to turn it off.
No.
Like when we are going through something ourselves,
Mhm.
what they don't a lot of people don't even understand that they're witnessing
Mhm.
us going through those steps, and then we are called then to, I won't say put our pain on the back burner, but we are called to push through that and
Yeah.
still pour
Yep.
into and still encourage and still guide and still educate
Yeah.
while we're in that. And so that takes an enormous amount of willpower and strength, because there are times, and I know you probably like it too, where you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Don't
Right.
send me nobody. I don't need no
Right.
clients right now. If
Right.
I could have shut down completely for those
Yeah.
6 months and talk to absolutely nobody, that would be pretty unrealistic. But
Yeah.
but it's what you need. So um
Yeah,
I think
we have to be able to compartmentalize it. We've got to
yeah,
be able to bracket it. Well, the technical term, as you know, is we got to be able to bracket it. And that
yeah,
means we have to put it to the side, because when we have our clients, they deserve our very best. They don't deserve
right.
Rhonda that's going through something, Rhonda that's scared. I need to be fully present in that moment, because this could be life or death for them. And they need my full undivided attention. And I need to be able to bracket that, put it to the side,
Mm.
and, do my debriefing and do my work on my own, and not bring it in front of my clients to be a barrier. So you're right. That takes an enormous amount of courage,
Mhm.
uh, resilience. It's just amazing. And the mantle that we carry, and we're not saying this to be egotistical or boastful, but it is what it is. When you're in a helping profession, the mantle that you carry, the burden that you carry, is when people come to you, they're pouring out everything and they're in the midst. And isn't it such a wonderful privilege, Lady J, that God trusts us with his people?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that alone right there is incredible, that when God trusts you with his hurting people,
Mhm.
it's like your stuff has to go to the side, and you
Right.
have to learn how to fend for yourself, fight for yourself. And you've got to be able to go through it and straighten your shoulders, square yourself up, and be there for that next person, because they deserve that. They don't deserve a part of you, they deserve all of you.
Right, absolutely. But you also have to realize too that there are levels to when things fall apart too.
Oh
Because
yeah.
sometimes there are some things, like I said, that can hit you so hard where
Mhm.
you start to feel like you're falling apart. And it's at that time when if you are a person of service, if you are a servant to others, and if you are, a mentor and a therapist and a counselor to others, you have to know when it's time to take a step back and understand that
Absolutely.
I'm not in a mental
Mhm.
space or an emotional space strong
Right.
enough where I need to be pouring into
Right.
helping someone else, because right now I'm the person that needs the help. And that, I think, is extremely important when you are in when you are in that space, because if you don't do that and you um are in a position where you're trying to help somebody, you can do more harm
Oh, absolutely.
than help.
Yeah. You fall into compassion fatigue,
Mm,
101, and
yeah,
you fall into burnout, and if you're burnt out, then you now become callous. You don't listen with the empathy that you should, and you don't
right.
regard the people, and then they get a harsher version of you,
Mm,
and that could be the very thing that pushes them over the edge. But you're absolutely right. You've got to know, that's why self-care is so important for the one that cares for others. Self care is essential. Debriefing is essential. You need to have a team. You need to have a way to release, and also know when you're on that borderline of burnout yourself, or compassion fatigue yourself. And yeah, you do need to step back. You do need to recharge. You do need to refuel, and that way get yourself together so that you can come and, present the best version of you possible, because people are counting on you.
Mhm.
And you don't have to be a counselor for this either. You
Right.
could be a mother, you could
Mhm.
be, your kids are
Yep.
pulling on you, your spouse is pulling on you, your significant other. You could be a leader at work, you could be a boss, and you want to make sure that you're, because especially in the corporate world, and that's one thing I saw with my previous company, is as the stress came down from the top,
Mhm.
it's amazing how the VPs and the presidents, they don't speak to the people on the levels that we were on. It trickles downward, and when it trickles downward,
Mhm.
then they can't say anything to their superiors. So then what a lot of times what people will do is they take it out on the people below them, and you get a harsher version because their superiors didn't even say it that harshly to them, and they don't know how to deal with it. So they just push it down and push it down. And by the time it comes to us, we're getting a very harsh reality when it shouldn't have even been that way. But even if you're in a leadership position, you have to know when your personal views or your personal stressors are getting in the way of you being an effective leader. Even, or if you're a church and whoever you lead, you have to make sure that you are 100% good and able to serve without bias. That's the biggest thing, without bias, and still have the patience and still have the time and still have the compassion
Yep.
for the people,
Mhm.
or else you're going to break the
Absolutely.
morale of everybody.
That's right. And I know you mentioned like too. It's really big too when you're a parent, because
Oh
when
yeah.
you're going through something like my kids. Let's see, my kids already knew. They was like, "You been in this room too long. You ain't cooked in 2 weeks. What is going on here?"
Right. They
Kids
want their
are not
mama.
right.
They
Kids
don't
are
give a doggone about all the shows. They want their
not
mama. They want some hot
exactly,
food. They want some
exactly.
quality time.
Yep, and you have to just like you have a responsibility as as a therapist or counselor to tell not take clients at the time when if you're a mother or like you said somebody in church something you have to learn how to communicate that like tell your kids just give mommy a minute a day or two I'm going through something right now. Of course you have to still life still goes on, so of course you still need to meet their necessities, their needs or whatever, but taking that time for your mental health and self-care is extremely important because when you don't, again, you can do more harm than
Right.
help. That's at home, that's at church
Everything.
in your community, whatever. So
Everything.
yeah.
And if you make those appointments, or if you make a promise, especially to kids, or
Yeah.
employees or clients, especially if you say, hey, we're going to revisit this, you need to revisit that. You can't just keep putting them off and putting them off. You need to honor your word
Right.
and revisit that and pick it up and say, okay, this is the time that I set aside for you, and, manage your time effectively.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Now,
Exactly.
I know it's already 24 minutes in. I know we got to take a commercial break, and even though it's just you and I talking, I know we've got to get those in. So, good spot to take a break, run our commercials, and we'll be right back.
Are you in need of a fresh perspective on relationships, wholeness, love, and transformation? Or are feeling consumed with hurts from the past and finding it difficult to overcome traumatic events? Well, contact licensed marriage and family therapist Sharon Mason of Love That Relationship. She can get you back on the road to building a healthy and loving relationship with yourself and others. Love That Relationship. Have you subscribed yet to the free bi-monthly digital interactive ego magazine? No? Well, head on over to www.egoentertainmentnet.com to subscribe now. This magazine is all about supporting and showcasing excellence in communities everywhere, from music, arts and culture, relationships, education, politics, celebrities, food, and so much more. While you're flipping through the pages, just click on the buttons and social icons and you'll be taken to a whole other world behind the articles and ads. At Ego Entertainment, everyone is a star. There is something in it for everyone, and we hope you are positively impacted by what you see and will continue to support Ego Magazine. Track CBPD by Arulo. If you are an entrepreneur, podcaster, radio host, cinematographer, or photographer and are in need of a space to work, the Ego Center is for you. A fully equipped radio podcast studio, photography and film studio, workstation, and small conference area are available for booking. Visit egoentertainmentnet.com to take a virtual tour, book, or join a membership program today.
All right, and we are back talking about what to do when everything falls apart. And I heard a saying one time that the only thing constant in life is change. And when everything seems to fall apart, that is an immediate change, an unexpected plan. That's why we say it has fallen apart. So I'm talking with Lady J this evening, and we're having a great discussion about how things fall apart. And what I would like to talk about is at the core of when things fall apart, there's a lot of components in place. So just think about it. If you've planned on something or you're looking forward to something happening and it doesn't turn out the way that you thought, or in essence, it falls apart in your perception or your mind, like tonight, there was supposed to be a guest, there was supposed to be a couple of things that happened, and we just had to go and be ready to do the show. So we could have stress, could have thrown up a repeat, but I was like, no, we're going to push through this. We're going to just talk. And I am definitely able to just carry on a conversation. I have enough topics with clients and stuff that I could talk about, and perfect timing, to talk about anxiety, worry, and what to do when everything falls apart. So at the heart of when things fall apart is several different emotions. Number one is disappointment. And these may be in no particular order. I'm just going to say them as they come to my head as far as relating to me. Okay. You would have disappointment. That could be an emotion that is immediately brought to the surface if something falls apart because you were looking forward to something and it didn't happen the way you wanted. So you could be disappointed. You could feel anxious. You could have fear. You could be sad. You could be frustrated. You could have grief. You could be angry. There's all these components. So depending on what your situation is, we don't know what emotion you're going to be dealing with, because that's going to be determined upon what the value of what you were looking to happen holds in your life. So for example, think about it. If you say you're going to get married and it's the day of your wedding, and on that day, one of your spouse to be calls the wedding off. Well, that would be pretty. You'd have a whole lot of emotions, right? Especially if you prepared for it, and you've got shock, you've got embarrassment, you've got anger, you've got bewilderment, you got betrayal. So it just depends on the magnitude of what it is for what the emotions would be that come up for you. So for me, this evening, like we are right in the moment, this evening, what came up for me, and I'm just going to be transparent, okay, is fear and anxiety. Now, that's an interesting topic. So, Lady J, what do you think? And I'm just going to bring this up as a topic of discussion. What do you think is the difference between fear and anxiety?
So, I mean, you can be anxious about something exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Um, but it can be the gateway to fear. Because if
Exactly.
you're too anxious when it comes to something negative, that leads to fear. Now, fear can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
You can be afraid and still move forward, or
Mm-hmm.
you can be afraid and not go anywhere. Um, Fear actually, a lot of people say that fear is false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, whatever you are afraid about, someone else has gone through that before you somewhere.
Exactly.
Even if it's just one person, somebody else has gone through that before you. And if it's something negative and you become anxious, worrying about it. Okay, how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that? Is this still going to take place? And then that turns into, oh my God, it's not going to happen. That
Mhm.
then it goes into, it goes into fear. Anxiety is like the beginning stage of it, like starts the car. Okay,
Okay.
starts the car, the the fear car. um or if it's something great though,
Mhm.
let's be honest though too, you can be afraid of good things too.
Absolutely.
There are people who are
Absolutely.
afraid to succeed.
Absolutely.
To be one of those people.
Absolutely. Okay, well that's awesome. Now I have a little bit. I agree with what you said. I have an additional perspective, and not saying neither one of us is right or wrong. It's just different perspectives. Okay, I believe, and it's true. You brought up a very good point. And anxiety isn't always bad. It could be a good thing to be anxious, and fear isn't always bad. It's a good thing to be fear because fear is a natural emotion. We were created to have fear to protect ourselves, and our bodies, as you know, we can go into one of three states: fight, flight, or freeze. And when fear is evident, okay, I love the way I explain it to my clients that they seem to understand the best. Is, you remember that movie with Will Smith and his son? What was it called? End of Earth, or Last Day on Earth, or something like
I know
that.
what
The,
you're talking about. Yeah.
the one with his son, right?
Mhm.
And he gives a speech about fear. And he's like, fear is danger is real, but fear is a choice. That, to a
Mhm.
degree, I agree with that. But fear is a natural emotion. Our bodies, this is one of the things that we were created for. It's part of the things for our survival. You need to have a certain amount of healthy fear to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And now fear, though, now anxiety, you said a very one interesting thing. You said fear can be paralyzing. So can anxiety. I tell you what, if you've never had a panic attack, anxiety can be paralyzing as well, to where you can't breathe. I remember when I had my one daughter, I never knew I had panic attacks until that time. And every time they would bring her into the room, I would get a panic attack and I didn't know what was happening to me. My tongue swelled up. My heart rate was like 200 and something over something. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I thought I was going to die. And the nurse said, it's all in your mind. And I'm like, no, it is not. Do you see those numbers? And they're like, when she was saying that, it was making me more anxious. And I literally had to calm myself down. But my perception is this: is fear is at the heart of all anxiety states. Because think about it, the anxiety gets worse as the fear builds. And anxiety, you're worrying. I love, well, Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, he says this. He says, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. Anxiety is that thing, I would think, is a choice over, well, both of them could be a choice.
Yeah.
Because anxiety, you're worried about what might happen. You're
Mhm.
not even sure. And our minds can go 1,000 miles a minute, and we can create scenarios. We can have it all play out. And our imagination is always worse than reality. Usually, it's usually never turns out the way we thought or the way we feared it was going to turn out.
Mhm.
So you put yourself through a lot of extra trauma, by letting your thoughts race. And that's the number one complaint I get is, Rhonda, I can't turn off my thoughts. And I came up with a three-step process that I use as one of my techniques. Now, I'm not saying, now fear is definitely real. Okay. People can, be afraid for a good reason, especially if they were hurt or they may have a phobia. But it all depends on how it is embedded into your brain. But if you're having like racing thoughts, do you know you cannot think about two things at the same time? You can't think about two things at the, two
Yeah.
different things. You can't do two different things at the same time. Like you can't think about one thing and sing it like at the opposite time. So like you can literally think about something else, you can immediately change your thoughts, and then other thoughts are going to come in, especially when people try to meditate. They'll say, well, I try to meditate, and I am not a meditator by any means. Okay. But
Mhm.
like I do it a little bit, but I'm not like a master meditator. But when you try to sit down and meditate, all these thoughts come to your mind and you can't quiet your mind. And being able to quiet that mind, that's a key to getting through anxiety. And, one of the things you could do is when those thoughts come up is, just ask yourself, where is it coming from? Is it even real? Or is it something that I'm creating myself based off of fear or based off of insecurity or based off of, you know, anger, whatever your situation is. There's could be many things fueling it underneath it. But I
Right.
think fear is at the heart of anxiety.
I agree with that perception as well. With that side of it, I've only had panic attacks once in my life, and that's when I was pregnant with my third child.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't know what was happening at that time either. But I forgot all about that actually till you said something.
How did you get through it? I actually breathed, and I actually had to talk myself down because nothing that the nurses were doing. I literally just went into this thing like, okay, Rhonda, breathe, because breathing can bring you right back to center. And like my sister, she is a Reiki person and a massage therapist. She's a Reiki master, and you know breathing is the key to a lot of things because a lot of times our breath is the first thing that gets dismantled or disrupted with our emotions. As our emotions rise, as our emotions change, and even when a client's in front of me, I'll ask them to pay attention to their breathing, because a lot of times, have you ever talked to one of your clients and they're like real upset and they're like, and this happened, and it's like they can't even breathe while they're talking. Their breath is shallow. It's coming from here. And you just be like, okay, take a deep breath. Let's just bring you back to center. Let's just
Yep.
calm you down. And our breath is one of the first things that gets all messed up. But our breath is the very thing that can guide you into that peaceful state as well. Learning how to breathe properly, learning how, and that'll ground your emotions as well. It'll ground your all your system inside with your brain, your nerves, your
Mhm.
everything. And breathing is the basic core function. And
Right.
that's one of the first things that gets messed up with our emotions when things fall apart. Your heart starts racing, your breathing gets all messed up, and
Mhm.
that's a telltale sign that you got to take a step back and calm yourself and breathe and get back to ground and bring yourself down.
Yeah, I think I know for me I did breathe. Breathing was something I did to calm myself down. I know now I think that what a lot of people should do. I know some people meditate,
Hmm.
but there is something that you should incorporate into your life. It should become a sort of a lifestyle to help keep your anxiety low and you not go into or not allow fear to become a paralyzing factor or anxiety become a paralyzing factor. And that is for some people it's meditation. For some
Right.
people it is like for me it's I do devotion every morning. When I
Okay.
get up, the first thing I do is pray.
Hmm.
um
Okay.
Prayer is my meditation
Okay.
and devotion. And so I read the word, and the more you feed yourself
Hmm.
positive things, or if you are a believer, the things of God, and those you allow yourself to speak into yourself, to encourage yourself. I have these and I've always had this thing called the strength wall in all of my
Oh,
houses.
nice.
And it's something that I tell my clients to do, is to build a strength wall.
Okay.
Negative thing that was planted in me, every negative seed that was planted in me when I was younger, and throughout my lifetime, or the things that I've experienced that caused me to believe the opposite of who
Mm,
I am and who God says I am, I made it a point to reverse that. So to
that's good.
extract it, replant and rebuild. And so that could be, it could be
Yeah.
scriptures, it can be
Hmm.
positive affirmations, and I speak those things into
Hmm.
myself. And and so I have that up in my house.
Nice.
And so for some people it's meditation, for some people it's speaking those things into yourself daily, for some people it's prayer, for some people
Yeah.
it's but that should be a daily thing, so that
Yeah.
way no matter what comes your way, you
Hmm.
get better at not allowing it to completely take over the
Right.
in a negative manner, where you find yourself hyperventilating, or you find yourself you know um feeling like you're having a heart attack or
Right.
paralyzed.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I love that idea of a strength wall and taking the things that people used to bring you down to be the very things that build you up. That's incredible. I love that. I might actually incorporate that myself. That's a good one. I might have to take that one from you, Lady J. Um, yeah, and it's so funny because well, it's not funny. It's on purpose that you say that, and because you're bringing back to my remembrance in saying that something my mother used to always say to me and my sister. She would tell us to just simply polar reverse. She said, when everything is going the wrong way and you feel bad and you're blue and you just in a funk, just polar reverse and just automatically just polar reverse and do and act the exact opposite of the way that you're feeling. And what you focus on grows. So, for example, if you smile and just smile for a couple of minutes, you will literally start to feel happier.
Mm-hmm.
Because have you ever been on the phone with a customer service person or anything? You could tell if somebody is smiling on the phone or if they got an attitude. But even just smiling is something that changes the whole chemistry of your brain because it's a happy thing and you actually feel lighter, you actually feel happier.
Right.
A lot of times I'll do that. I'll just pole or reverse, like my mother said, and I will do the exact opposite of how I'm feeling. For me, music is a thing that calms me and soothes me. And writing, I'm a writer, so I'll write things down. A lot of times I'll get my feelings out on a piece of paper and I'll just start writing every single thing down that I'm feeling. And as I write it down, then I'll read it afterwards and I get my answers as I speak, as I hear myself. But I need to express what I'm feeling. I'm not like you had mentioned before, you get away from everybody. I'm the exact opposite. I need to express and I need to, and I've learned not to
Do that. Oh,
or I've learned not to burden everybody with it, I've learned to say, hey, I need to vent. I don't need you to say nothing. I just need you to vent. And the people that are closest to me know, they're like, okay, go. And I just start and they don't have to say nothing. They could be doing whatever. I don't care if they're paying attention to me or not. I just need to verbalize it because as I speak, I get my answers.
mm-hmm.
And that's how it's always worked for me. um yeah,
It works.
so
It works different. Different things for different
mhm,
people.
yeah.
I think that even though I'm a person where people can vent to, people feel comfortable,
Mhm,
venting with me, of course, or whatever. Um, I'm just not one of those people that will pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, let me tell you what's going on."
mhm,
I'm saying? Like,
right.
uh, but I think for some people they need that, and it's
Mhm,
different for everybody. I mean, whatever works for you is
right.
what works for you, and I think too that keeps a lot of people. If you have not mastered the ability to understand that there are going to be phases in life where you are meant
Mhm,
to stand and walk alone because that
yep.
lesson is for you and
Yes.
only you. Um, I think that is what is most difficult for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and that's where the suicidal ideation things begin
Yep.
to come into play, and the deep depression or manic, depressive people begin to form because
Right.
it's like you have not developed the understanding yet
Mhm,
that one, I think one of the main things we need to be able to tell ourselves when we do get into a place of like severe anxiety and fear is that this is temporary.
yeah,
We,
absolutely.
when
This
we
too
are
shall
temporary,
pass. Yeah, that's another thing my mother would always say. This too shall pass. And you're so right. We have seasons and valleys in our life, and there's gonna be times where there's nobody to talk to. You are literally by yourself. And that is the thing, a lot of times people can't stand to be by themselves because they're so dependent on other
yeah,
people for their validation, for their encouragement, for their decision making, for their everything. And you have to get to the point, and I think when you become more and more resilient and as you go through more and more things, you realize there really is nobody that can help you through it. it's
yeah,
a it's a
it's true.
self journey.
Yes,
You can talk to people, but you're right, the lessons that you need to learn have to be learned by you. Now,
That's
somebody can give you counsel, somebody can give you advice, somebody can give you support.
mhm,
But, we all have those friends where we've had this same conversation for
mhm.
years. And it's like, oh my God, they're still in this. I've done told them 1,000 times, leave that joker or
Yep.
and well, I don't know what's happening, Rhonda. It's like you're blocking yourself because you're afraid to take that step. But ultimately, everything in your life is for a reason.
Right.
And just you're gonna get tested with the same thing until you learn the lesson. So a lot of times people will say, a certain relationship, for example, was a waste of their time.
Mhm,
I disagree. Every relationship I've ever had has never been a waste of time, even if it was horrendous, because I've learned from every relationship. I've grown from every relationship, whether it was positive or negative.
mhm,
It has helped shape me into the woman that I am today. So I've
mhm,
learned not to say this was a mistake or that was a mistake, or I wish I never did this. I wish I never hooked up with that person. I wish I never married that person. That was the biggest mistake in my life.
mhm,
No, everything is for a reason because there's a lesson.
mhm.
You either have a lesson to learn or a lesson to give.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to, and two, we also acquire certain knowledge and wisdom from
Hmm. Yeah, you mature. Yeah.
those situations. And when you were talking about when you were just talking about the lessons, we have to realize too that you have to look at life as a big test. And
Hmm.
when you're taking a test, you can't cheat off somebody else's paper. Nobody can
Nope.
help you in the test. So
Nope.
it's literally when you are walking alone, the parts of your journey where you have to stand alone, you have to walk alone,
Yeah.
you are required then to utilize the all of the things that you've been taught by
Up to that point. Yep.
that was a friend or a confidant that listened, maybe
Hmm.
gave you some advice, a therapist, or whoever the case may be. Even some of the situations that you were in previously and the lessons you learned from that, you need to utilize those in order to
Yep.
get you through where
Yep.
you are now. And so I think if we just look at life, understanding that um pain is inevitable,
Absolutely.
but and the only thing that's eternal, death is eternal, pain is inevitable,
Right.
but um situations are changeable.
Hmm.
So it doesn't remain the same. And I think
Right.
that we something in our minds automatically switches on and says, oh, this is never going to end, this is permanent.
Mhm.
No, it's not permanent. It's only permanent
Always
if you allow it to be.
temporary. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if you could just make it through that dark time, if you could just make it through that experience that fell apart, it is so much better to go through it and to find yourself on the other side. Like tonight, we could have easily put up a rerun. We could have done that, but
Mm,
no. I was like, no. Let's grasp this opportunity because this is real life happening right now, and
mm,
let's talk about what do you do when everything falls apart or when plans and expectations don't turn out. I got a gnat or something flying around here. But when situations don't turn out the way that you thought, yeah, we could take the safe road and we could be like, hey, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. But no,
mm,
or we could press through. And if you got to go alone, you got to do it yourself, then guess what? People will see us
mm,
having this discussion and it'll be a perfect opportunity for something. This is going to be right on time for somebody that's listening tonight. It's
mm,
going to be right on time between the things that you've brought, the things that I've brought, the ideas. They're going to listen and somebody's going to try something. Somebody's going to build a strength tower, a strength wall. Is that what you
mhm.
called it? A
Yeah.
strength wall. Somebody else is going to, maybe try writing or something that I brought up, whatever it is. But our collective experience of, hey, neither one of us were ready for this today. Um, well, let's just push through. Let's go
Right.
through and let's, talk about, and people can see us in the moment. And even now, I feel a lot more relaxed than I did when we first started.
Mhm,
And I know that there's going to be meaning in this. It's purposeful. And you said something earlier, as those, when you are entrusted with other people, It brings in my mind, and it is a scripture, to whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
Trust me, we are going to be tested.
Mhm.
And if we can't handle something, and if we get into the habit of just canceling or running away and doing something that is safe, then what are you going to do in the midst of an immediate emergency where somebody's life is on the line?
Mhm.
You can't be like, okay, wait a minute, I'm not ready. I'll be right back. You can't do that, or you just can't do that. And like, okay, I need a minute to collect myself, because you have to be ready to go with whatever you're dealt with at that moment, and not let it shake you or break you, and work through, past the fear, push past the anxiety,
Right.
push past all of that, because that's the only way you're going to build up resilience. Resilience is built by resistance.
Right.
You can see how much when you have a certain amount of resistance against you, when you overcome that resistance, now you have become resilient. But there's no resilience without overcoming resistance. Oh, I
Right.
need to write that down. That's a quote. That's going to be a Rhonda drop. That's going to be a quote.
I think that too. One thing I want to leave everyone with when the question is what to do when everything falls apart.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna say at the very basic level, I would suggest that people do this in this order. One, allow yourself to feel what it is that you're feeling, but you
Absolutely.
can't allow yourself to stay there.
Yeah.
Um, two, so and that two, you can take the time to react.
Hmm.
Um, the way the way that you feel you need to. So if that's crying, if that's screaming at the top of
Right.
your lungs, do that. Trust and believe you me, I have done it.
Yes.
Okay. I recall dropping my son off at work one time, and I just pulled over in the parking lot and I just bawled like in the
Hmm.
parking lot in my car. And I took that
Wow.
time to feel what I needed to
Yeah.
feel, to release screaming, crying, all of those things are healthy.
Yeah.
That's a
Absolutely.
form of it's a form of release. And
Hmm.
then you need to then look at the situation from all angles. Don't automatically jump to,
Right.
oh my God, this is the most horrible thing. No, because oftentimes what you'll find is as you start the process, once you understand that this is a temporary thing and it's not permanent, once you start the process to go through the phase of accepting the
Hmm.
situation for what it is, and then figuring out um how you need to maneuver through it in order to learn the lesson that you need to learn, you'll find that what you were planning for, or whatever you was holding on to, whatever the case may
Hmm.
be, really ain't what you wanted or what you needed, or because this is
Right.
a better way, this is a better person, whatever the case may be. And
Yeah.
so now you find yourself going from being upset to thankful. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you realize you dodged a bullet.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I want to just encourage everybody to do those things. Allow yourself to feel what it is you're feeling.
Hmm.
React to what it is that you're feeling, and then move on into, what I'm saying, assessing the situation. Look at it from all angles, not just from the place of your pain. Like really
Right.
look at the situation.
Right. I agree with that, and you're so right, and I love the way that you put that, because it's very important. You must feel in order to heal, and a lot of times people
Right.
push stuff down, and they push it down, and they push it down, and they push it down. Well, just like if you try to load a trash can, a dumpster with a bunch of garbage, you're eventually going to get to the point where the lid is going to be over, and you can't stuff anything else in, and it's going to spill over. You can keep pushing it down and pushing it down, but the more you pile on, the more it's going to stink, and eventually you can't contain it all. So you have to go out and dump it, and allow yourself to, release it, and give yourself the space for a replenishing or a refueling. So
Yep.
you've got to feel to heal. You
That's right.
cannot not deal with something. You have to deal with something. You've got to feel it, and then you work through. And yeah, and if it is something that comes through, unexpectedly, I like what you said. Allow yourself to react as well. And
Right.
once you allow yourself to react, I would just add in there, take a moment to breathe and center yourself. And, once you center yourself and once you're at a somewhat calm state, you never make a decision out of a emotional state,
Right.
because that's never a good place to make it. And like you said, consider all your options. And sometimes you don't got to make that decision right then and there.
Right.
You don't have to decide it and fix it in this moment. Sometimes you need to sit in the moment and allow the feelings to come, and do that, because you know what? Tomorrow you're going to feel a lot better. So you don't always have to deal with it right in that moment.
Right. Right. And those, and when you, like you said, when you don't allow yourself to feel, that
Hmm.
manifests in other ways. It can manifest in a physical way and literally cause physical
Stress. Yep.
issues, medical
Heart
issues.
attacks,
You have to allow
depression.
yourself to
Yep.
feel.
Absolutely.
Because and also, if it doesn't, if the physical part doesn't manifest itself first, then you'll find yourself picking up unhealthy
Yep.
coping mechanisms
Yep.
for your journey of transition
Yes.
from that situation into better, and then you'll find yourself stuck in limbo.
Yep.
So
Exactly. And if you don't deal with this stuff and process it, then guess what? You now are the one with the baggage, and you're carrying it into the next relationship. You're carrying that into the next thing. It's not them. Then at that point, it's you, because you have
right,
not processed your emotions. You haven't processed your stuff.
right,
So
right, and you
everything
gave
falls apart for a reason. And, without that resistance, you'll never find out how resilient you can be. And this has been a great discussion, and it was on purpose the
yeah,
way that it happened. And so I'm just so grateful, Lady J, for jumping in there with me and having this discussion, because, yeah, this was good. This was a good one. I can't wait to watch it back and see what we said. This is a good one. Now, next week, we do have Gary Davis and Next Level Boys Academy that will be coming on. I'm looking forward to that. We'll round out Black History Month with that and everything that this man is doing. He is making history in the city of Atlanta. So I thank everybody for joining. And before we go, I forgot to mention my sponsor. I got to plug him in there, Rob Delitas, ERPtherapy.com. He does ERP therapy for addiction. Make sure you contact him, and he does corporate training and everything. And he is a premier sponsor. His commercial, we're in the middle of making it now. So soon you won't hear me saying it. We'll have an actual nice commercial. If you want to be a guest, send me an email to mepoweredwithrhonda@gmail.com. And remember, everything you need is already inside of you. Have a great night.